Let's bring back Mayor Giuliani, also Stewart Baker, former Assistant Secretary at the Department of Homeland Security, and James Reese, CEO of TigerSwan. Gentlemen, James, let me start with you. What happens right now?
Well, what happens right now is the whole interagency task force, held up mostly by the law enforcement side, is conducting massive, investigations. They're establishing link analysis and link setups of the two suspects. And what you're really trying to see now is they're kind of crossing off everyone that's linked with these two suspects and where they go, and which drives them to the next action point.
How important is it to capture him alive?
From my standpoint, it's critical. If we don't capture him alive, we might lose the why we learn from this. The exploitation phase goes away, and then we're all doing it from an assumption-based instead of fact-based analysis.
Stewart, if they do capture him alive, who gets him? Boston PD, the FBI, the CIA?
The FBI will assert jurisdiction here and take him.
Where would he go?
I'd probably go to the nearest federal facility for questioning after he's been Mirandized. They will want to handle this very carefully to make sure that they can get a prosecution that sticks. Mayor
Giuliani, weigh in here. If and when they get this individual, what would you want to ask him once he's caught?
My goodness, I think it's absolutely right. If he is caught and he is alive, the FBI will take him. I handled the arrest of Hinckley when he attempted to kill President Reagan, and the Metropolitan Police took him originally, and the FBI asserted themselves, and we got him out of the hands of the Metropolitan Police and over to the FBI. They'll want to question him, but of course they're going to give him his Miranda warnings, and we'll have to see if he decides to get a lawyer or not. They're going to want to know everything we want to know. Why did this happen? Are there other people connected to this? Is there a plan for further attacks?
Right, that's probably the most crucial, right?
The most important thing is, are there other people that are ready to do things similar to this that they know about and are connected to? How much of this was determined overseas, if at all? Was it determined all here? And I'm interested in the connection to Chechnya, because we haven't had a situation where Chechnya has been a problem in the United States. So is this connected to that in some way, or isn't it?
What is your gut instinct, Mr. Mayor, telling you? Are these lone wolves, or was this part of a bigger plot?
I think it's too early to have a gut instinct. I mean, we're going to find out. It seems to me that they are better trained than originally was thought when they sort of looked at the devices and thought the devices weren't as sophisticated as we thought. These people have had training. Given the way in which they eluded the police last night, given the success this young man is having in eluding what is a massive FBI police manhunt, tells me that these people have some knowledge of what they're doing. So some training was involved here. I don't know who got it. I don't know who gave it to them. But these are not just complete amateurs.
Mr. Reese, is that your assessment as well? And let me ask you, what are the chances of taking him alive? We've heard lots of conjecture that wherever he might be, if he's holed up somewhere, it could be booby-trapped. He would want to take people with him, that it could be a suicide bomb ultimately. What are the possibilities that he's taken alive, do you think?
Well, there's two issues there. I agree with the mayor. We're never sure, but what's going on with the analytical side right now is there are some assumptions being made. From our experiences and from my experiences with the hunt for Al-Qaeda throughout the world, when we manhunted Al-Qaeda, I look at it more of a smaller group because there was not a lot of intelligence that came out, not a lot of push about it for the Boston Marathon. So I see this more probably as a very small group or cell, because the larger the group gets, the more chance you get the information out.
James,
yes.
I've got to jump in because Secretary of State John Kerry is speaking live now. Let's listen in.
And that the rights of people are represented in many different ways. So we proudly stand here today to release again our human rights report. And I want to thank, I'm glad to be here with Assistant Secretary Zaya as we present this year's human rights reports. These reports send a very clear message that all governments have a responsibility to protect universal human rights, and they help to blaze a path forward.
Okay, we're going to break into Secretary of State because they're going over the Secretary of State's annual human rights report. If he does make comments about the situation, obviously, we will jump back in. Stewart Baker, I want to go back to you, and I asked the mayor what his gut instinct was here, because we do know this, that his uncle in a very fiery news conference a few hours ago, said these kids, as he called them, could not assimilate, right? He was very vocal, calling them, quote, losers. We've heard more and more about these kids. We've looked at some of their social media pages. They tended to be political. They had some religious sort of fiery commentary on their social media pages. Do you believe that they acted alone?
I actually would say the best working hypothesis is that they acted with some inspiration, conceivably some training, but that this is a few people, a handful of people who more or less self-radicalized and then got some help in design and perhaps other tradecraft. But they're acting in some respects very amateurishly, and in other respects they look as though they've had training. So my guess is that this is a very small group of people.
Are there policies or measures we can put in place to help prevent self-radicalization? I mean, a kid who was raised in the United States from the age of 9 or 10, you would presume would have assimilated in some way, would come to appreciate or enjoy the freedoms of America compared to other parts of the world. What can we do you think?
Well, look, I don't know about you, but my adolescence was no picnic. You feel estranged from your society, and you express that in different ways. One of the problems that we had here is that the logical narrative of estrangement for these youth was to look to their ethnic roots and to begin to explore radical Muslim identity. I think we need communities of immigrants who are particularly worried about that and particularly quick to try to nip that in the bud. But we are going to have this problem. We had this in the Somali community as well, where people went to Somalia who were otherwise normal teenagers in Minneapolis just because they were unhappy with their lives in Minneapolis.
And Mayor Giuliani, I know that you need to get out of here, so I want to ask you one more question, though, before you do, which is, do the American people now learn to live with sort of sense of low-level fear everywhere for the rest of our lives? Because we've seen Oklahoma City, we've seen Atlanta, we've seen 9/11, we've seen this now. What advice do you have for the American people about dealing with this?
Well, this is a reminder that this is for real. It has been for real since September 11. I mean, just think of all of the incidents that have been stopped since September 11 if they had taken place. So. This is the reality of the world that we live in. So far, the record of our law enforcement, our intelligence services, our military has been pretty darn good. I can think of at least 30 or 40 attacks that have been stopped, including some in my city. So, yeah, this is the reality of the world we live in, and we're going to have to make the best of it and figure out how to have as much security without giving into them and destroying our liberties, which would be a terrible mistake.
It would be. Mr. Mayor, well said. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Also to Stewart Baker and James Reese as well.